15 degrees, you can see your breath. Out here in the lake of fact, breaking tables like it's poetry. Where else would you rather be? Pinto, Ron, Elvis in the late poncho. The members that you need to know. 'Cause once you out here now, your family. Where else would you rather be? Where else would you rather be?
Welcome into the Nickel City Crew. I am your host, Rob Crippen. Please like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Nickel City Crew. This episode, along with all of our episodes, are presented by Crippen Legacy Entertainment here on Spreaker and StreamYard. We're so glad that you're joining us for some of your Buffalo Bills and NFL content again today. And as always, these are my Bills thoughts said out loud.
It's a vibe so ridiculous. Since 12 plus 83 was 6. The shout rocking like a symphony. Where else would you rather be?
All right, let's get straight to it. Really excited for tonight's episode, as always. It's funny because I was talking with my co-host pre-show, and I've been kind of communicating with him throughout the week, and we were kind of come at it a little bit different, and we're going to go offense this week and the defense next week, and then things got switched around, and was like, you know what? That's fine. Defense wins championships. Everybody talks about defense is important, and I think the last years the Chiefs won the Super Bowl because of their defense, and their offense was struggling throughout the year, so that's cool. I'm down with it. Let's talk about the defense tonight. We've got a great lineup for you tonight, and I'm really excited about tonight's episode. Joining us, as always, riding shotgun, my co-host, Adam Dump Truck Rupsick. Holla at the crew, DT. What you know about that defense, DT? What's up, DT? Holla at the crew.
Nickel City. What's up? What's up, Rob? How we doing? Happy Friday night to all Nickel City crew right now. It was a good week. We're out of it. We're through it, and now we can talk shop as we're talking right now. The teams in the stadium for the return of the
red and blue.
What do they call it? Red and blue.
Red and blue.
Always,
the red and blue.
Always
practice.
big hype, man. I was driving back home from work tonight in the '90s, backed up. People are jammed up, ready to get to the stadium, and just a preseason for the fans as well as the preseason for the team. So the vibes are good. Defense, baby. I mean, the old saying is they win championships, but obviously you said last year the Chiefs did have a good D, and that kind of helped them. But the year before that, when they played the Eagles had a 85 Bears type defense, and got 40 hung on them and couldn't touch Mahomes in the Super Bowl. So I think we're definitely leaning to the offensive side of the ball as offense wins championships now. But hey, the D's been our pride and joy for a long time here in Buffalo, and I hope that to continue into this year.
Yeah, it's funny, I joke about it, but it's still important. It's funny. It's like, it's one of those situations where, you never notice that, that you don't have one until it's too late. And it's like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like, we're getting ran up on, or whatever the case may be. So I know that we've had some fun with it, with that whole little moniker, and our dads and our uncles and stuff like that have always talked about the importance of defense. But sometimes, definitely, you're absolutely right. This is an offensive league now, but you do need it to show up and bow up at certain points in time. And that has really, honestly, DT, been one of the hallmarks of the Sean McDermott defense of his entire tenure here in Buffalo, is that, he's got that bend but don't break mentality with Leslie Frazier. And he's had some great successes, a top 5, top 10 defense pretty much every single year that he's been here. And it kind of speaks to McDermott. You've got to give him his flowers on that. We talked about it last season, DT, how his magnum opus was against the Dolphins, the high-flying Dolphins coming off of 70 points and all that other fanfare. And he shut them down, and he had a plan for him that day. And it was really quite impressive, to be honest with you. And we gave him his flowers and all the type of stuff last season with that performance on the defensive side of the football. Now, as we transition, DT, there's a new sheriff in town, or we at least think so. So, for Bills Mafia that is not aware, Bobby Babich, the former secondary coach, his dad was a linebacker coach here in Buffalo for a number of years. Bobby Babich Jr., he is going to be taking over for Sean McDermott on the defensive side of the ball. At least we think. I know that when McDermott was asked at the beginning of training camp, he really didn't want to say if Bobby Babich was actually going to be calling plays. I know that Babich had some interviews as well that we talked about during the offseason cycle for the head coaching cycles and stuff like that. Coordinators are no different. And I know that he got some attention, DT, from other teams. So I would lean towards the fact that I would just assume that if he didn't take a promotion somewhere else and he stayed here in Buffalo, that's because he's going to take that promotion and get a chance to call plays. Obviously, we could be wrong, and maybe McDermott keeps the coaching play calling duties. But I think that in order to convince Bobby to come back and be a part of this thing again was that, you're not just going to give me a promotion in name. You're going to let me kind of call this thing and give me an opportunity to, to cut my teeth, so to speak. And I think that that's the way that McDermott is leaning. And it might just be a situation where he doesn't want to put too much pressure because it's preseason. So kind of just keep it, close to the vest right now.
That's a good thing, right? I mean, McDermott, one of our biggest criticisms our whole time on Nickel City Crew has been, the stubbornness and my way or the highway. And we talked a little last week about maybe that's changing a little bit and he's growing
right.
as a coach and a person. But I still don't think he's just bringing somebody in that he doesn't trust and, isn't gonna do the job for him, right? So, with legendary defensive coach and Leslie Frazier, there was, kind of some back and forth after 13 seconds and this and that, and who's going to call the defense. And then McDermott took the play calling away from him, and he said, "I'm out." And so for Bobby Babich, a kind of young up-and-comer with a lot of potential, probably will be a head coach in the league someday, to come in and be our defensive coordinator, like you said, he's not just doing it to do it. I think McDermott trusts him and is going to give him the reins to do that because he wouldn't be around if McDermott, was taking back the defense and doing his. We said hiding behind that shield with Leslie Frazier, and then he was out, and McDermott had nowhere to hide last year, and had a pretty damn good defensive year. With all the injuries they accrued and the way they were able to keep in games. I mean, a couple. Down to it, a lot of the times Josh Allen left the field with a lead or a tie, and they ended up losing those games. But that's with the players on the team, especially in the playoffs. You had practice squad players out there for the most part in a lot of areas, and McDermott was able to hold true. So for him to pass the torch, and I don't think Bobby Babich is here just in name, just for fun. Like,
no, I don't think so.
This dude's going to have the title. He's going to call the plays, and and that shows McDermott and Bean trust him to do that, or they're too old school enough where they wouldn't be doing an experiment right now, right? So this is if they didn't trust him, he wouldn't be here. And Bobby Babich, rightfully so, was probably not going to be here if he didn't have those type of opportunities to go with. So we take it as a good thing and bring that juice. I like Bobby Babich, Rob. I mean, the dude is all we've seen so far is just the juice he's bringing to practice.
I like it.
He's got that stereotypical defensive kind of raspy voice to him, and and he's out there yelling, and it's not like corny excitement. It's more like getting your ass type excitement.
Mm-hmm.
And,
he seems genuine. He seems real, and I think the players probably react well to that. One of the things that I thought about it when his first press conference, I said it on Nickel City Credit. I was like, man, I will run through a wall for Bobby B. Like, he got my juices flowing. It's just exactly what you're talking about. So I think that he's a motivator. I think that the players definitely seem like they respond to him. And I think that can't be a bad thing. One of the things that I noticed was that this, they were even talking about on WGR earlier, in the week, was like, the staff seems to be just younger and younger and younger in respects to Joe Brady on the offensive side of the football, and then now Bobby Babich on the defensive side of the ball. And that can't be a bad thing. I mean, it seems like Brandon Beane has and obviously Sean McDermott as well have had a concerted effort to kind of bring some youth in, bring some new energy in, which means some new ideas as well. And I don't know if that necessarily could be a bad thing, because sometimes things get stale. And what is the main thing that all coaches try to fight against is that their message gets stale. And in the locker room, it starts to turn into the peanut club, and it's the peanut teacher. Want. Anytime you get a chance to get some young talent in there, whether it's football talent for the players or whether it be talent for the coaching staff, I don't think that is something that's a bad thing, DT. I'm actually all for it. I like these young cats coming in here and trying to put their mark on this whole thing. That's not a bad thing for me. I look at it as a positive.
Well, what did we just do with a complete almost roster overhaul and made it younger? Kind of reset the market and put a lot of the older players on our team are gone and in with the new, and kind of the new regime of getting younger and getting cheaper. And look what just happened to Bill Belichick and the Patriots, one of the greatest coaches of all time, and all those Super Bowls. And what was the biggest knock on him lately? He wasn't progressive. He wasn't, he didn't get used to the new, younger age of the way things are. He was just old school and couldn't keep up because of it. And so you have to have a younger staff to kind of keep up with who you're bringing in the younger players. You got to have that kind of younger staff to keep up with them. Sometimes these kids, if you will. I mean, we're over
I know what you
30. We
mean.
can say it,
I
right?
know
We
what you
can say
mean. I know
kids,
what you
right?
mean.
Some of these kids, if you will, don't respond well to that hard nosed, old school type stuff. So,
Mhm.
they need some young swagger in them to have some, it's just a human nature, right? You want something that's similar to you, something that's relatable to you. That's
Yeah.
how you can perform your best. And, in our job, probably the same way. So I think it's a whole kind of facelift for this team of, the Botox of the Bills. Let's go like
I
that.
like that.
Put that on the
I like
hashtag.
that. I like
Botox
that.
of the Bills. The wrinkles. Get rid of those wrinkles. The Bills
Yeah.
are young, and so is the staff.
That's funny. I like that a lot. Yeah. Shout out to Bills Mafia. Over 400 people already, DT, tuning in. We, again,
Let's go.
really appreciate your support and stuff like that on all the different platforms. I know that everybody's getting ready to enjoy the blue and red practice like DT talked about. I know that they'll be down there at One Bills Drive at the stadium for a little bit longer for those of you who are there. So enjoy it. Josh Allen came out with the black helmet tonight. I know that we had talked about how that's been coming along yearly. I think he had a red one year, that mirror one that everybody loved, and then a blue one that had some mixed reviews, but this one was hot. It had a black helmet. That's why I wore my black hat tonight in honor of that. It was the old school standing buffalo that always pulls on my heartstrings because I love that standing buffalo logo. So enjoy yourselves out there. Be safe this weekend. I like that. I like that helmet though. That was dope.
Where's that been? The standing buffalo hasn't been in the last couple of years. I mean,
No, they
they at
haven't.
least at least a game or two a year that along with the color rush red ones, they would have the standing buffalo classics. I mean, it was a uniform combo you could put on Madden, for a while because it was what they
Yes,
wore.
the
It was like
throwback. Their little throwback.
Nike made the new, like they were classics, but it was a Nike version. It was newer. And the standing buffalo's hot, man. I mean, if they did it, obviously they're not going to do this, right? But if they did do the black, what jersey combo would be your favorite with that black helmet? Well, I mean, with the reds, or would you the white or the blue?
Oh man, no, with those reds it would just look sick. It would just make it
Yeah,
look,
with
it
the
would make it pop. You know
top,
what I mean? If
yeah,
you had a chance to put the black
little
helmet
top
on
pop.
there, it would make it pop. Yeah, I would really enjoy something like that.
But
So
so what's good with the alternate? All these other
I don't
teams
know,
are coming
man.
out with all these
I don't
alternates and
know.
throwbacks and selling. And last year, the Eagles with the Kelly Green when they beat us in overtime. And
Yeah,
where's the '90s? The '90s blue with the red helmet. I think it's
man.
unanimous. Who
Shout out,
doesn't want
shout
it?
out, shout out, man. Buffalo fan base. Shout out to Swank and those guys over there at the K Gun Report. You know those guys in the Finger Lakes, and we had them on the show, and we're going to be on there. We were on their show. They had a nice little helmet debate recently, and it was a good little debate about where's it going on. And then Andre Reed, if you chipped in on Facebook and was asking about it. I mean, those for me personally, it's just that's just my nostalgia. There's right behind me. There is nothing better than those '90s uniforms for me because that's when I fell in love with the Buffalo Bills. So I would love to see those behind me come back. I mean, just the way that blue would pop. I know that a lot of people used to think that it looked a lot like the Giants, but it was still lighter than the Giants blue. It wasn't navy. It popped, and you see Thurman right behind me, and just that whole uniform combo. I want the red helmet. I want that jersey back with the white pants, and I don't know, man. That combo, it speaks to me. Now, obviously, that's because of the fact that that's what I fell in love with. I would never bring back those, those horrendous. What were those? I don't even know what they call them. Those shoulder pad ones in the '90s that Drew
Yeah, the
Bledsoe wore.
navy.
Those were garbage to me, or whatever the case may be. I love the throwbacks, like you talked about. I would play with those in Madden as well with the standing buffalo, especially when Nike put those on. I like those throwbacks from the 1960s. But for me, man, I mean, I don't know. We got to catch up with the times. I know somebody had said the new Buffalo Bills president or whatever, the Bills and Sabres was on WGR, and he said that type of stuff takes some years of planning. But man, just you can't throw together this red helmet and just go head on and get the stripe in the middle the right way and just get this thing out there. I don't know what the holdup is.
The economic boom. I mean, everybody, you and I would definitely get one. That would be hot.
Oh,
Everyone's got to get one,
probably get 10.
So it would be a huge boom, and I mean, pop in with wearing one game. I mean, they've been real stingy. They wear one red game now. They used to do multiple red games. They used to have the standing buffalo. Now it's all stingy, all business.
He said they called him stingy. I love it. Well, as we transition, DT, it's defense tonight, and I wanted to push back on something that you had sent us in our notes, and I wanted to know, or at least for you to elaborate a little bit more on it. You had talked about how Sean McDermott has shown that it really doesn't matter who's out there. Now, to a certain degree, I have to agree with you. Again, we got to give him his flowers and give his honor where it's due. He has done well with injuries and finding a way to put the pieces together and different things like that in pressure situations. However, obviously, it all came to a head, just too many injuries against the Chiefs and just too much to really overcome with those linebacker injuries. And you got Balin Spector out there and Klein off the couch and all this other shit that we should not even have been in the situation to do that if you had Bernard healthy and obviously if you had Milano. So I know that there's a limit to what he can do with the injured players, but just elaborate on what you feel when you say that anybody could be back there. We have seen a rotation across from Trey White now, who's in LA with, Levi Wallace and all the other guys opposite him. And it just seemed like every year he would just figure it out and then, okay, let's bring Levi Wallace back, or let's bring this guy in, or the case may be. Safety, the same thing for backups for Hyde and Poyer. It was always, Dean Marlowe's and other guys coming in and familiar with the system, and it just seemed to work. Talk to me about Sean McDermott and what you meant by that statement that anybody on that defense could just kind of get it done, because I like it, but I wanted to push back on it a little bit.
Sure. I mean, well, a couple of years ago when we had the healthy, the healthy core, right? The Poyer, the Hyde, the Tre'Davious White, defensive backcourt. And when I say anybody, it's because he kind of brought in that rotational defensive front, right? Yep. There'd be different guys going in all game, every game, and we're going 9-10 deep on the defensive front in there.
Right.
So that is kind of how it started with anybody on the field could be successful. Bend, don't break. They've never been a great pressure team, by any means. And that's the Bills in general, other than Bruce Smith and a little bit with Mario Williams, have never been a good pressure team. So that's the thing we're dealing with. But good enough. The bend, don't break mentality and that rotation of anybody on the field can do it with that base in the back.
Right.
Past couple of years, the base in the back is kind of that's been on the rotating base just as much as the defensive front has been, and they've still been relatively in the top 10, top 5 of games, playing when offenses are better than they've ever been, and we're playing the first place schedule going up against Joe Burrow, Mahomes, Herbert,
right?
Who every week you've got a world class quarterback you're going against with weapons galore on the other side, and it just seems like we're never getting cut up too bad. So my thought there, it started like anybody on the rotational basis, but then it turned to literally anybody when people started going out with injuries and, throwing people in there and losing all pros left and right and still being able to make it happen. So that's where I kind of, the not so much injuries in the beginning, but definitely injuries as of late, and both situations they've been able to hold true.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's funny that you talked about the pass rush, because it seemed like, that was probably the best it ever looked with Von Miller before he got hurt in Deep Town, in Motown. It was like, wow, we finally have a little bit of a pass rush to go with the great secondary. And it seemed like everything could come together. And then, of course, it was just our luck for him to go down. But, because Trey White was just finding a way to round back into form. So it looked like we could be a complete defense. It's funny when you talk about, some of the ways that he's been able to plug and play. One thing that he hasn't had to worry about is on that back end, those safeties. I mean, just those stalwarts. And we've already given those guys their flowers and respects to Hyde and Poyer. And it's interesting because, Mike Edwards can't stay on the field. Missed all the spring pretty much with an injury, and then gets to training camp and he's out with a hamstring. McDermott classifies him as week to week. And then Cole Bishop, I guess, just went down, and he's also been classified as week to week. Now, I know that he wasn't necessarily pushing for a starter job, but it's interesting because the Bills just brought in 2 safeties. They just brought in a guy, Terrell Burgess, and then they brought in the hard-hitting Kareem Jackson, who's been around the league, it seems like, forever now. He's been like a dozen years in the league and loves to knock people's heads off. But they're bringing in reinforcements, what lets you know that, obviously even Brandon Beane thinks that it's a problem because you need guys to go out there and practice. DT, talk about that safety room, because I think that that's been like a luxury that we've kind of glossed over. And the only reason that I say glossed over, obviously Hyde and Poyer have gotten their flowers, and we love to talk about how great that tandem has been, 7 years on the job. So I don't mean that we didn't recognize how great they were. What I do mean, though, is that it's almost like you don't really think about it until they're not there. And then all of a sudden they're not there and everybody's looking around like, what the fuck do I do? And we've never really had to go through that because these last 7 years they've been there. And I understand that these last couple of years they've been a little bit on the down slope, but they still, consistency. Every single week they are there, lined up, ready to go, rarely out with injuries until these last couple of years. And then just the actual high-level play that we got out of Hyde and Poyer, those are going to be really hard pieces to replace in that respect. And it's just funny and ironic that all of a sudden the safety room seems to be the most banged up out of anybody here early on at camp.
Well, my concern, Rob, is a point I'll make here. Is the Bills' offensive line is good without
Right.
Josh Allen? Probably
Right.
not, right? Josh Allen deodorizes them, makes plays to make them look better than what they are. I'm not saying they're bad, my thing about the line, but he deodorizes them to probably make them look better than what they are. Aaron
Okay.
Rodgers for years in Green Bay had no, finally got Devontae Adams, but other than that, had really no weapons and
Right.
still made that offense look good, because he was so good, kind of deodorized what it really was. Defensively, you had, the Luke Kuechly's of the world on a Carolina Panthers team where, Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane literally got their jobs from that. Not a lot of other names on there. And Luke Kuechly kind of held it down and made every tackle. And you see it in Pittsburgh with TJ Watt. And are these defenses not that good? And these superstars kind of bring them into respectable. And so that's the question. Was Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer the deodorant of this defense for the last 7 years? Was that the bend don't break? Because that would kind of hold true with that. The bend don't
Never
break.
got beat over the top.
They're the line of defense, right? So they're bending until they get to the safety, and they're never breaking at the safety point. So that's my question, to this year's defense, to this year's new age. Like, were they a deodorizer, or is it really, can Sean McDermott really plug in anybody back there and be successful, right? The positive of that is the past couple of years, Hyde and Poyer have kind of had a downswing, have kind of, haven't been productive as they are, and we're just kind of out there being in position as opposed to, being playmakers that they were a couple of years ago. So as we talked earlier, and it's a little segment we'll do tonight of, as we go through each defensive group, we'll say, one word. So kind of the safeties, that my word for the safety is shoe fill, right? Are they shoe fillers back there? Do they fill Hyde and Poyer?
I like that.
Or Hyde and Poyer, were they just upper elite and deodorize the defense? And now the bend don't break turns into break a few times because we don't have those vets back there. But, with that shoe fill, I really had high hopes for Cole Bishop. Hopefully this isn't a long-term thing. Like AC joint, they're saying a couple weeks. Okay. Mike Edwards, I don't have really any confidence in, right? He comes in, like you said, on the older side, couldn't stay on the field in the spring, and now has hamstring issues. Like, I'm putting no confidence in that. DeMar Hamlin,
he's out there.
Keep starting.
He's starting.
He's got to get
starter
reps.
right now.
Got to get reps.
Yep.
Tyler Rapp, I think, had Taylor Rapp, excuse me, a decent
up and down
year last year.
Down.
But again, wasn't thrust into the point where we needed him at every play. So there's some names. I mean, Kareem Jackson, the dude can
take your head off.
If he can stay on the field. He got suspended, obviously
twice last year.
At 330 Linden, the Mafia doesn't live alone here. We got the Bronco gang in here, and I watched a lot of Broncos games last year with roommate Zach, and that dude would just headhunt. Like, they wouldn't even have any,
no
any
remorse
vibe for the rules or anything. He got suspended 3 times last year, and that game after he got back, he just crushed somebody across the middle again. So, I mean, hopefully McDermott and they're a little more disciplined, and they can discipline him. And he's 36 years old, so he's not going to be an every down type of guy. But we're going to need him to make plays, and so I think shoe filling is going to be big to push this point of, was it Hyde and Poyer being the deodorant, or can anybody kind of be interchanged? And McDermott, that's kind of his magnum opus of the defense, is the safeties, really, and bringing the level of the safeties up. Can they do that again this year without the true names of the squad?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Now, as we transition, DT is absolutely right. We do have a nice little segment that he already kind of foreshadowed. But tonight's episode, again, presented by 26 Shirts. Here on Buffalo Fanbase, the official Bills Mafia podcast network that we, Nickel City Crew, simulcast on. Head on over to 26shirts.com for all of your latest Buffalo Bills and Sabres and Buffalo-themed T-shirts. Again, portions of the proceeds go to a great cause. Each and every purchase is going to have portions of proceeds going to a great cause. And these are families that are in need across Western New York, across the world. Head on over. Again, salute to the Godfather, Del Reed, who's running a wonderful site over there. Head on over, 26shirts.com. Go in there, get yourself some swag, get yourself some threads, some, what do the kids call it, some drip with some of these new shirts and stuff like that. They've always got cool concepts. They got some really awesome content creators over there that are coming up with cool t-shirts. So head on over there. Also, want to give a shout out to 716 Vintage. And DT can tell us a little bit more about that as well, because Queen City Vintage. I'm sorry, Queen City
Queen City
Vintage, because
Vintage, yep.
those guys, I saw Khalil Shakir come up in there. I saw Benny, not Benny,
popping,
Conway the Machine was in there. I was like, what
Yep.
is going on? And I mean, holla at the crew, DT, about your boys that you know there at Queen City Vintage.
Yeah, Queen City Vintage. We got a big thing planned with them coming up this year. With Nickel City Crew, we're going to do a nice collaboration. My boy Nick owns that place out there, and they have blown up, Rob. I mean,
They really
as
have.
hopes with Nickel City Crew and our
They
Bills
have.
and our Bills podcast blows up. They've blown up. Kind of started in COVID and the days of like the vintage of like going to Salvation Armies and just picking stuff and seeing what would be valuable and filling store with that. To
Right.
now, like they're world class online.
Nice, beautiful facility, man. Beautiful store.
You got Josh's girl Haley Steinfeld, who we can say Josh's girl now. They went official on IG now, so we can say Josh's girl Haley Steinfeld hits it every time she's in town. They come in, they close the store down for her, and she's only ever been top notch nice. You got players in there all the time.
Yeah,
Shakir. And now, they do other things than Bills, but right now it's obviously all Bills. It's all geared up. And you want one of a kind type of stuff to go to the tailgate with. They got it. They got everything and anything in there. They got a huge event coming up August 30th down on Elmwood. I got to get the exact address, but right across from 40 Thieves down there. A huge Bills event. Line goes out the door. They got special surprises in there for everybody, and I can't wait to join up with them this year. We're going to be doing some giveaways to the fans. We're going to be it's recording shows from Queen City Vintage, the actual store down on Elmwood, and when you come up for the games, I'm sure we can set something up to get down there and make it happen. So looking forward to that partnership, and yeah, big pop. Hit them up. They got way more followers than us, Rob. They're up to that 40,000 follower mark on Instagram, but we'll be there. We'll be there.
I love it, man. I mean, I love it, man. Let's spread the love. And like I said, that's your roommate. And you guys are longtime friends as well. So I watched them, grow, like you said, coming up to 330 Linden to the bachelor pad and checking you guys out. And when they were small and not even in the storefront like they are in now, and like just seeing them grow has been a really, really cool thing. So again, check out 26church.com. And again, check out Queen City Vintage. It just tugs on my heartstrings because it's all 90s stuff in there and it's all original Bills stuff. And I love it. I love seeing they got the Marv sweater with the Bills across it. I mean, golly, I just love that thing. So absolutely check those guys out. Now, as we continue to transition, DT, you had already just kind of teased it. Let's go through position groups and let's talk about some of the things that you're thinking about. Now, you had already gone to the back end. We're going to start on the defensive line. Everything starts in the trenches, and Sean McDermott would love to tell you that. He always loves to tell you everything starts with the O-line and the D-line. When we talk about the defensive line, it's interesting because you already spoke about the fact that they've got it in a rotation, and it just seems like it's something where they're keeping those guys fresh. When you talk about Ed Oliver, and then you've got Day-Day right next to him, Daquan Jones, and then you've got the new guy coming in, Dwayne Carter, who seems to be looking good at camp. Again, a big-time starter at Duke, a captain, multiple-time captain. Looks like he's just coming right on in and fitting in. As soon as he was drafted, I knew that he was going to fit in. When I heard some of his pre-draft stuff down at the Senior Bowl, I was like, that is a Sean McDermott guy written all over him. The way he talks the game, he's like I told you, he was a son of a coach and stuff like that. So his whole family's been in football and former players. So I knew he was going to fit in. And then when it comes to that rotation, it just seems like, keeping those guys fresh is just, those are the big hog mollies up there up front. You need Ed Oliver to stay light on his feet. You need Day-Day to stay light on his feet because of the fact that you don't want them taking 60-70% of the snaps if you can avoid it. Obviously, if a guy gets hot one week, then that's a different situation. But for the defensive line, I would call it a rotisserie. Just moving that thing around and just churning that thing around. That would be my thing called for the defensive, at least for the defensive tackles and really for the defensive ends as well that we'll talk about. But for the DT, I would say rotisserie, because those guys just keep churning and churning. It keeps everything nice and fresh and glistening and looking good and staying juicy. And I think that's the best approach.
I like that. I haven't eaten dinner yet, Rob, so that might be the rotisserie. It's the Costco rotisserie. And yeah, I agree. That
like
rotation base. My word is clone, because these dudes are all the same.
Yeah.
What better way to have a rotation than everybody being the same, So you're going to get consistent results as you rotate and work through. I mean, as you said, the starters with Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, and then you go into, the Dwayne Carter was literally looked just like these dudes at Duke, like looks just like them, has the same type of vibe, has the same type of attitude. And then you got Austin Johnson coming in, who literally was roommates with DeQuan Jones at Penn State and on the Titans, and he's made a good career for himself. And same body build, same type of status. So this whole rotation clone, they're all the same. And what more do you want in a rotation than having the same? Like, so it's not a downfall. And I mean, there's positives to that too, right? You have
I know what you mean.
Show them a little bit different. But at least you have consistency with them all being very similar body types, all very similar players. And I think with that, that's also going to bring out the best. It's, the whole team, they're brothers, right? They're all together as brothers. But I think they have a little separate, connection being on the defensive line. And these dudes are very close. Obviously, Day and Austin Johnson go back by now. Ed Oliver is kind of, the leader of this team in those regards. And Dwayne Carter is just coming in to needs leadership and needs his big brothers to kind of lead him there. So I think it's a very close-knit group. And I like rotisserie, and the clones are rotisserie. So that's
I like that
on the DT line.
I like that. Now, when it comes to the defensive ends, DT, looking at this defense, Bobby Babich has got to do something that nobody has really been able to do, and that's get consistent pass rush and pressure. And it's really, like I said, it's been a point of laboring since, Von Miller has gone down. You've got options. You've got, guys with pedigree, or at least it seems like on paper. I mean, we've got Rousseau, who was a first-round pick, still waiting for him to flash. I mean, he's been okay and he's been solid, but nothing that jumps off the page. You've got AJ Epinesa, who's, he's okay. You know what I mean? He had a great year, his best, year as a pro last year, and he needed that. He was in a contract year. They reward him with a small contract. It was a team-friendly one, and he signs back up to come back to Buffalo. And so obviously we're happy to have him back in that respect. But again, just a guy, nothing crazy, nothing too flashy. On the other side, we've got Von Miller, obviously, who we're wondering if he's going to be able to get back into form. Obviously, he's been out there at practice without the brace. Hopefully that's a mental thing where, he's not thinking about his knee anymore, and he's just kind of being confident in it. And knowing that, listen, I can make the cuts. I can do all the different things that I need to do to get around that edge, because that was really, vintage Von Miller from Denver. And even that year with the Rams when he's winning the Super Bowl, is that that's Von Miller, is that dip, getting down underneath those, those big tackles. And all of a sudden he's wrapping your quarterback up. And then we've got, Javon Solomon, who's a rookie, led the NCAA in sacks last year for Troy. Seems to be an intriguing prospect. And some other guys as well for depth. I mean, there's no shortage of options, DT. So what I would say is, this is the M&M group. This is the who's the real Slim Shady. Is somebody stepping up? Please stand up. Please stand up. Like, we really do need a pass rush, because what it does, and everybody knows it, in respects to Bills Mafia, we all have watched football long enough. If you affect the quarterback, that's why those guys get paid so much money. Who are the highest paid players on the field? You start with the quarterback. After that, now it seems the wide receivers are getting paid a bunch of money, but it really is those left tackles, those right tackles. And then it's those defensive ends, man. If you can affect the quarterback, take him off his spot, fuck up his rhythm where he's, 1, 2, 3 step, and then all of a sudden he's got somebody in his face, it really does mess up the entire game plan for an offense. I mean, those guys are literal game changers.
Well, Joe Montana said it. He said the game of football is very simple. The way to win is to get to the other team's quarterback. I mean, and you see it in history all throughout. The greats, the only way the greats have fallen is when they're got to, right?
Brady included.
When Brady on his come up, when the Broncos got him in the AFC Championship games a bunch of those times, when
the Giants,
Mahomes, yes, exactly, got with the sack with Tuck,
that little NASCAR package.
Yep. And then you go, to more recent years of Mahomes playing Brady and the Bucks, and what did the Bucks do in that one? They were all over Mahomes, and he had no room, and it cost them a Super Bowl because they couldn't get anything done. So it is crucial, and down the stretch, that's what we need to win down the stretch. That's why we brought in Von Miller. So you talk about Von Miller, somebody who's going to go down as one of the best pass rushers in the history of the NFL. He talks about this year counting, sacks to be in the top 10 of sacks all time this year. He knows exactly what he's got to get to do that. You have that. You have Greg Rousseau, who's a first round pick, who's going to be lucky to have a over 80 rating in Madden this year. I'm not that Madden, but like the public eye doesn't think you're an 80 or above, and you're a first round pick. And AJ Epinesa, like you said, is a good role fill. So my word for the defense is pissed. The defensive end is pissed. Like Von Miller should be. This is disrespectful. I'm one of the best defensive ends in the history of the league. Yes, last year was a wash completely. Shouldn't have played. Whatever the case, but you got to come out there, and if you're playing on this team, you think you're still a top pass rusher in the history. So that he's got that chip on his shoulder. Greg Rousseau, a first-round pick that is treated like a fourth or fifth-round pick, and only flashes of greatness. So I think in the upper level of this defensive end group, pissed is the word for me. Like, play with that chip on your shoulder. You've been completely disrespected. Now get to the quarterback with some tenacity to you.
I love it. I like that. Be pissed. Play with that chip, that little edge. For guys like Rousseau, you gets off the bus and that motherfucker looks like he plays football. You know what I mean? He looks like he's the all bus team. He looks like, golly, this guy, how big is he? 6'6", and they call him Groot when he first got here, and like all that type of stuff was fun. Now I need you to kind of just flash. I need you to flash, man. I need your first round pick. I need you. You want that 5th-year option picked up, which you got it picked up, but now you're playing for another contract. You know what I mean? You've got to pick this thing up, and that got to really show.
They got bailed out with Leonard Floyd last year. They got bailed out with Leonard Floyd
because they weren't expecting that.
On the team, they would have been exposed. They would have been exposed of being Jags, just a guy. They would have been exposed all the way across. So there's talent there. I think you got to play with the chip on your shoulder. I like the young guy Solomon. I hope he makes the team and really is productive for us and pushes up and that's going to be better. And you see all these dudes at the Von Miller Sack Summit, and they're ready to go. And like, and guys like, no disrespect to some other pass rushers in the league, but guys like Max Crosby and, these cats that like, they're good, but are they really like leaders and gamers on teams? Like, I don't know. That's a different story for a different debate for a different time. But like,
because I like Max, his motor is nice. So I like Max.
It's not hard to be good in this league, but like, come on, like if you, like you said, all bus team, Greg Rousseau, like calling you out, like if you be as good as Max Crosby, come on. So that's where I'm at. Play piss, get after it. You're gonna have to down the stretch to win, and you got to get to Mahomes. That it all comes down to that, right, Rob? So,
golly, don't even get me started. As we transition to linebackers, DT, it's funny because when you look at this, like last year was just almost a situation where, it was like, man, what could have been, and you're just looking at it like, man, what could have been, because nobody saw Terrell Bernard flashing onto the scene like that. I know the entire offseason before we were talking shit about, Dreads and Tremaine Edmonds, and we're making the jokes and stuff like that. I know we had Big Mike on from Not Your Average Podcast in the 716, and we enjoyed his time and stuff like that. And that's really what the offseason was about when it comes to the linebacker core last year, was who's going to replace Tremaine and who's going to replace Tremaine, and are we really going to miss him? Nobody, I don't care who you were, you did not think that young kid out of Baylor was going to come in here and set everything on fire, and he really has. Terrell Bernard has been a pleasant surprise, because I didn't see it coming. I know so many of you in Bills Mafia did not either. And now he's a household name in respects to, he's got an opportunity to take that next step where he is a household name when you talk about off-ball linebackers. Obviously, you've got Matt Milano, all-pro, looking to come back from that injury, looking for him to get back in his kind of his bag, so to speak. DT, what do you think about the linebacker core? Because I know that they've got some depth with Morrow. They've got Ulushposhio as a rookie and stuff like that. So we should be good on special teams and things like that. I would look at it as just it's the mash unit. That's the unit that we need to stay healthy. These are the guys, it's the mash unit. We need those guys to stay healthy, because last year, Kansas City, you and I were there, epic tailgate, and then you get in that game and it's just like, man, no, I don't know if we would have won with Milano and Terrell Bernard, but I do know that those guys would have given us a better opportunity, and the game was close anyway. So you have to be able to at least give some credence to the fact that this was a really important position group for those guys last year, and it looked like it when we didn't have them.
I mean, coming back, Terrell Bernard wants to really make a statement in year two. He kind of had the flash and needs to show people he wasn't a flash in the pan. He wasn't a fluke. He wasn't just good because Matt Milano wasn't in there. He's a strong, linebacker. So
they were making plays together before Matt got hurt. They were making plays.
Matt Milano, coming back when obviously, as you've seen, our history isn't good with that, right, Rob? With Tre'Davious White, never really himself, and then gets right when he was about to be himself again, gets injured again. Von Miller, whatever that was last year, coming off injuries. So you hope maybe third time's the charm here, Matt Milano, and he comes back powerful and to the all-pro level, we know he can be. And then you look deeper into the Bail Inspectors and Dorian
Ulafosio.
Williams and
Yeah,
Fosio,
Dorian.
a
Yeah,
captain on
Dorian.
the national title appearance, Washington Huskies. So I think the word I'm going with for the linebacking core is speed. I think
Okay.
they
Okay.
want to be flying around this year. They want Bobby Babich, wants to get these boys moving around and kind of get all the negativity of the injury and the lackadaisical speed. You have Terrell Bernard, who needs the speed because he's not going to a bigger
Right.
guy and not going to overpower you. Matt Milano, I think, needs the speed to show that he's isn't lost a step and he's back to
Right.
full go. Dorian Williams kind of showed us that was his thing last year. It might
Right.
have been in the completely wrong area,
Place.
but he got there quick.
Hey man, do it fast.
He
Like
got
I
there
said,
quick, right? And
we can
so
coach that.
I think that's what I'm going with this year, like speed, not necessarily just like straight up like run the 40 speed, but just fly around as a
Football speed.
linebacking core and roll around and the hits will come. The hits will come with that. But I think that the speed is going to gain confidence to this linebacking core, and that's what we truly need. I mean, confidence might have been a better word, but they're not confident yet. They need the speed to be confident.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that word. It's going to be interesting unit. Like I said, before the Milano injury in London. I mean, they were both making plays together, and they were looking like some of the best tandem linebackers in the league. And then obviously everything kind of just went off the rails when Milano goes down. Obviously Bernard continued that great play, but like you said, I would love to just make sure that sometimes I get nervous when it's just 1 year, and if you're a Green Bay Packers fan, yes, sure, you found your quarterback, and that feels great, but goddamn, like he only did it for like one season, and then same thing with the Houston Texans, like, oh man, we got this guy, he gonna be the shit. It's like, sometimes I just get nervous, like, man, I just haven't seen it, so I don't know if I can count on it yet. But yes, Terrell Bernard was a breath of fresh air for that linebacker room and for Bills Mafia, so we enjoyed watching him. Hopefully he can back it up this year with another great performance. Now, as we transition and look at the cornerbacks, DT, as we move to that secondary, I know we touched on the safeties a little bit, but the cornerback room it's funny because, I mean, you had talked about it earlier about pissed, right? And it seems like word out of camp that like Kaiir Elam is pissed with all the disrespect and, the trade rumors last year and different things like that. I don't think they were ever seriously considering trading him because you always need depth at that position because things can happen so quickly, a turn of an ankle or something like that with a cornerback. And then all of a sudden, you need bodies, let alone trading bodies. So they invested in this guy. I never thought that they were going to trade him last year, but man, word out of camp is that he is playing, he's balling, whether it's to take Benford's position or whether it's just to be a supplement, or like I just said, injuries happen and things like that. Give the Bills more confidence. Bobby Babich, Sean McDermott, more confidence that something happens. They don't have to worry about going outside the organization. They've got the answer right there in house. I don't know how it's all going to shake out, but I do know that, man, Kaiir Elam seems to be making plays. Now, every fucking receiver hates him on the Bills because of the fact they call him handsy, and everybody's always talking shit about how he should be getting more penalties and stuff like that when they have the refs there to call practices. But hey, man, if the ref doesn't call it, then it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? I always think about those Legion of Boom defenses, DT, where, Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor, those guys were handsy. But if the refs weren't calling it, then hey, man, that's just good coverage. So I don't get too caught up on the fact that he's handsy. It's just if the refs are in the mood to call it that day or not. But I would be remiss and be lying if I didn't tell you that I'm happy to see when the guy catches some shit and then he responds. And it seems like this training camp, Kaiir Elam's like, fuck that. I'm a first round pick. I know I can play this defense. And for whatever reason, he wasn't doing, in the right positions or whatever the case may be last year, but it seems like it's starting to click, and he might put some heat on Christian Benford. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, this is a group that gives me confidence because we hung our hat on Tre'Davious White for so long, right? And
We did.
just a brick, a solid part. We're good. He's locked down. We don't have to worry about it. Then he leaves, and there's panic. There's panic when he's hurt and he's leaving. And it really we never got cooked. That bend don't break. We never got cooked. Some games it looked like it. Even last year, you can
the London game.
on the London game. I mean, Calvin Ridley was dotting up Kaiir Elam, whatever. But then they threw for like 270 yards. It wasn't like he threw for 500 on him. In the Pittsburgh game, it looked like he was going to get cut up all day, and then he has that beautiful pick in the playoffs there to kind of get it back. So he's playing definitely with a chip on his shoulder. I think Rasul Douglas has to come back in and stay leveled up.
If he wants
we
another
brought him in
contract.
to kind of be like, we kind of just threw that shit up that like, oh, hopefully you're a one. And he came in and was a strong one, played
Yeah,
great for
absolutely.
us last year. So,
Mm-hmm.
that was an investment that was worth it. And Christian Bedford, from the depths of Division I AA or whatever the hell they got going
Villanova,
on
man.
down
I didn't even
there.
know they played football.
Yeah, coming into, and has played strong in his reps. And again, nobody's perfect, but the team, it doesn't kind of, as Tre'Davious White, it's kind of had that method of, it doesn't matter who's back there. It's kind of okay. Nobody's locked down, but nobody's getting, completely cooked.
Cooked.
And then you got Taron Johnson, one of the best, slot corners in the game, and, and not afraid to hit and be in there. And obviously help is going to be a big issue across the board at cornerback. I think that's where we're the thinnest a little bit when it gets, starts to get, if one guy goes out, then it gets real thin if one guy goes out there. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this. I hope Kyrie Williams starts stepping in and playing tough and giving him and Christian Medford are going back and forth for that role. And Rasul Douglas kind of locks it down on the other side. But the beauty of it is we don't play a ton of man, right, Rob? So it's not like these dudes are going to be on islands all the time. Stick to your zone, stick to your area, be athletic in that area. And
watch the quarterback.
To help you out and make plays. So that, I think, makes up for some talent that we might not have per se. When it comes to the scheme of the zone. So that's my word for the cornerback crew. Zone. Just keep them. Nobody out here. I'm confident going one-on-one with one of these superstar wide receivers, but I'm confident as a unit that they can stick to their assignments and make plays back there.
Yeah, interesting. I like that. I mean, you better, play that zone and keep your eyes on the quarterback. I would say eyes and feet, and hips. Keep those hips loose and let's see these guys try to make some plays because, Benford has been a pleasant surprise. And obviously, like you talked about from Villanova, 7th round pick, you never expect anything out of it. And it's just so funny and ironic how they just flipped that draft class with those guys flipped. And it just speaks to the fact that that's why I really love sports, to be honest, DT, is that it's the ultimate meritocracy. I get what I earn. You know what I mean? There's nothing that has to be given. Kyrie Elam wasn't going to be given shit because he was a 1st round pick, the same way that Benford wasn't going to be just not on the team because he was a 7th round pick. Nope. Let's roll the football out. Let's get out there and let's see who wants it and let's see who can improve their technique. So it's funny to see how that all worked out in previous years. And then again, like I said, I'm excited that Kyrie seems to have a chip on his shoulder. I do like those reclamation projects where, he's so young and like, why would we give up on the guy? So I do like the fact that he seems to be turning it around. So as we transition, DT, I think that we covered it all. I mean, you talked about the safeties as your deodorant, the Old Spice unit back there in respects to that actual scent. It's interesting because when I look at it, what's a successful year for the defense? It just seems like that bar has been set, DT, from a Sean McDermott defense. I don't care necessarily if it's Bobby Babich making the play calls or if it's McDermott. The same way that I didn't care when it was Leslie Frazier because it was still McDermott's defense. It was still his baby. It seems that the standard is I should expect a top 10 defense at worst. Nothing below top 10. And if we get lucky, we should have a top 5 unit. That just seems like the standard. And that has been the standard, even like we've talked about tonight a few times without even a consistent pass rush. It really is full marks to McDermott on his side of the ball. I know I talk a lot of shit about him and different things like that, but when it comes to defense, it's just hard for me to poke a lot of holes in his game because, again, that's how he got the job. He cuts his teeth on that side of the ball. And, quite frankly, he's probably one of the better defensive coaches in the league, period. I mean, I don't know too many more that I would rather have other than him in respects to that side of the ball. So for me, a successful year, DT, is a top 10 team. I mean, I don't care about the young guys in the back end. I would expect excellence, at least top 10 type of performance. That's what I'm looking for.
I mean, Rob, Nickel City Crew, go back a few months ago and listen to the schedule release episode where we break down the schedule. And every week we got some dudes to cover, Rob.
Hell yeah, you ain't lying about that. We got some
dudes to cover and a quarterback to contain. And if
lying.
we're a top 10 defense with this schedule coming up, that's a hell of a success.
That's a feather in the cap.
Success, as we get in, as we get into the offense next week, one of those things I'm going to bring up is the pressure on the offense is going to be more. They might have to bail us out of games a little more because the defense, not so much that the defense is bad. It just
the games are going to be closer. Games could be closer.
Yeah, exactly. And because the offenses we're going to be playing are putting up points and yards, no matter who's back there, right? So if we're a top 10 defense with this schedule coming up, I say that's a hell of a success, and obviously another feather in the cap of Sean McDermott, and really solidify him as a defensive guru.
Yeah, no, he's one of the best. I mean, I can't really think off the top of my head. I love Mike Tomlin just because I like the way that he communicates. I like how he, finds that common ground with his players. We talked about coaches and stuff like that. It just seems like he's the ageless one in respect to that. The players respect him, but I know they've got a nice little new coach out there that I'm familiar with because I'm a Michigan man. I'm a Michigan fan. So that guy McDonald, out there in Seattle from Baltimore by way of Michigan. He seems to be a nice up and coming guy. We saw that Brandon Staley was a fraud. I couldn't really look at too many defensive coaches that I'd rather have over Sean McDermott. Now, don't get me started on the offense, and we'll talk about that next week. But I mean, when it comes to defense, you've got to give him his flowers. He's a great defensive mind. And just to speak about the quarterbacks, DT, you're absolutely right. As we put a bow on tonight's episode, I just brought up the schedule. And I'm like, holy shit, because it doesn't seem like there's that. And I know that schedule release show was a good one for Nickel City Crew and Bill's Mafia to go back and listen to. But let's just listen. We'll just do quarterback. Kyler Murray, and I don't care what you really think about him, but just chew on it. Kyler Murray, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, the two-time MVP Lamar Jackson now, C.J. Stroud, who everybody's sucking him off, Aaron Rodgers on his reclamation tour. Will Levis, who's what is he? Josh Allen diet? He's diet, or he's Josh Allen zero?
Timu, Wish
Josh Allen, Geno Smith, back to Tua,
okay.
Anthony Richardson.
So wait, Rob, what is that Titans game? What week? 7?
Yes. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, week 7. Mm-hmm.
So that's week 7 before you see
a really
mediocre.
Yeah.
Before you see a maybe mediocre quarterback.
True, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, whatever you think of, like I said, whatever you think of Aaron Rodgers and all that other type of stuff, and Trevor Lawrence, we can debate all that type of stuff. But again, Will Levis, Geno Smith, back to Tua, Anthony Richardson, who's a Josh Allen kind of type player. Then we got Mahomes, Purdy, Stafford. I mean, Goff. I mean, like all those just the end of the season, and then obviously you got maybe Drake May by that time, Rodgers, and then maybe Drake May again or Jacoby Brissett. So I mean, there's not too many breathers. I counted maybe like 4 games where you're like, all right, this quarterback shouldn't fuck us up today. Let's go out and get our shit done. But like other than that, you better be on your P's and Q's. Every T better be crossed, every I better be dotted because the quarterbacks are not going to let up this year. So it'll be interesting. Again, I think we are both in agreement. Bobby Babich will call plays. I think that's just a formality. Yeah, I doubt that he stayed with some of the offers that I know Miami wanted to talk to him. A couple other teams were interested in talking to him for their DC position. Most of the time, when you get those positions, unless it's on offense. On offense, it's different. I mean, we saw Ken Dorsey get hired in Cleveland. He's not calling fucking plays like Kevin Stefanski is calling plays. And, Dable just took back over play calling duty from that guy, Mike Kafka, and stuff like that. Offense, it's different. Those coaches are very they're very hands-on with their offense. That is their offense. They want to call the plays. If they're going to get fired, fuck that. I'm going to get fired because I made the wrong play calls, not because of you. So it's different with offense. With defense, man, I think that Sean McDermott knows enough about his defense that he can just let go of the reins a little bit like he did with Leslie Frazier and let him get a shot, man. I like Bobby Babich. Let Bobby V get a shot, man. Let him get a shot. Let him cut his teeth, man. Claw up some blitzes, stuff like that. Let him cut his teeth.
Like we said, if they pull up top 10 with the schedule we see, that dude's a head coach next year. Guaranteed.
Oh God, yeah. No, he'll definitely get some interest if they want to go that side of the football for sure. His name will be brought up because it's going to be a tough one. So we'll see. Listen, I really enjoyed this episode tonight, DT. The defense wins championships. We're going to see what it's all about. Maybe. Next week, we are going to hit you back, Nickel City Crew. We'll be back on our regular scheduled night. I know these last couple of weeks we've been hitting you guys on a Friday. Next week, we'll be back on our regularly scheduled night on Thursday. We've got a great guest coming up next week for the offensive side of football. So we'll flip the ball. We'll go to the offensive side of the ball, and we'll break down everything. Offensive line, running backs, wide receivers, which is everybody's forte right now since the departure of a certain player that I can't mention or anything like that because I got in trouble last week. But tight end with Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, the DK brothers. So we'll see. We'll talk about everything on the offensive side of the football. Everybody in Nickel City Crew knows I'm an offensive guy. I throw the ball all the time on Madden. Now they got the new college football game. I don't even need running backs. Just give me 5 wide and let's go get this shit, man. Like I can't wait to go get it. So we'll talk offense next week. We cannot wait to get back to you guys. Hope everybody really enjoyed Again, the red and blue practice, if you're actually out there, the blue and red, you're still out there. So going on for about another half hour. So hope everybody enjoys this. This is a really fun time for the family to get out there, the kids to get out there, get some autographs, things like that. Really cool thing that the Bills do. They'll be back at camp. I think it's on Sunday, DT. So we're closing up camp pretty soon, but we got another week or so of games, of practices at St. John Fisher. So we'll continue to look at the injuries, DT. We'll look and see if these guys can get back in that safety room. We'll continue to watch Keon Coleman. Keon's been making some moves out there, making some catches and stuff like that. So we'll continue to watch the wide receivers and join us next week. DT, man, hit them with the Go Bills, man. These are my Bills thoughts said out loud. Spread love out there, not hate. Hit them with the Go Bills, DT. I mean, it's summertime winding down.
Next week's game week. Game week. Go Bills.
Probably see Caleb Williams, right? In Buff. Yeah. All right. Hit them with the Go Bills. Go Bills, man. Y'all take it easy tonight. I love it.